Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, be part of the Singapore delegation, and I would like to thank everyone behind the scenes of the Singapore team for making this panel and the whole pavilion happen. It's been truly inspiring. Please give a round of applause. Thank you for the standing ovation across the board. Thank you, thank you. Now, this is a very special panel because this is a very special book launch. I could say this is a book launch with a panel or a panel with a book launch, but it's a special day because this is the day when I touched this book for the first time in my life. And this is a book we've been working on with more than 15 people for more than a year. So this is a big day for me, big day for us. And you might say I'm biased saying this is a special book, but the reason why we wrote this book is because we didn't find the kind of content in academic and business literature that we were looking for our work. And ultimately, the work we are doing is exactly what the book is about. So we decided to just write this book and share our research with the world and share our research with you. So what is this book about? The book is about Asia Pacific, scalable technologies, investment, and opportunities. Ultimately, it's an optimistic book about the investment opportunities across Asia Pacific in the context of decarbonization. Now, why should anyone care about that? Why should anyone care about Asia Pacific? More than 50% of the CO2 emissions in the world are actually coming from Asia Pacific. And soon enough, more than half the world's economic output will be coming from the Asia Pacific region as well. And with that, corresponding to that, the CO2 emissions will be increasing proportionally. Why scalable technologies are the ones that we are looking at? According to the International Energy Agency's Path to Net Zero 2050 report, we have 85% of the technology that we need to hit net zero in 2050. 5% depends on behavioral change. So we decided to look at the 85% of the technologies that are already in existence, and we just need to look at what's most scalable across Asia's industries. And why investment? Because ultimately, beyond committed corporates, beyond corporate committed governments, we need capital to fuel the decarbonization of Asia's industries. And we believe that this need is also one of the biggest investment capitalistic opportunities of this decade. So what sectors were we looking through and why? The UN has already done a very good job, and they call it the six-sector solution framework, where they identified very clear targets across 6 sectors for decarbonization and to hit the 2030 targets and figures. Now we use this framework and these figures, and we kind of reshuffled them across 3 different sections in the book. We call them humans, cities, and nature. Each section has 3 chapters, and we go through policy and finance, lifestyle and consumption, industry and waste, energy, mobility, the built environment, food and agriculture, forestry and oceans, and sequestration. Practically the sectors that are the most important to achieve our net zero goals across Asia. Each chapter is modular. We have an analysis that is focusing on the industry's past, present, and future. We have case studies, a corporate case study, a startup case study, where a corporate case study represents the current activities, the current efforts in the context of decarbonization of that particular industry, and whereas the startups represent the future, the hope, the opportunity, the trends. And we also have interviews for each chapter with either a policymaker, an investor, or a business leader. And just to give you a couple of examples from corporate case studies, we featured Geely, Unilever, HSBC, and the likes. Featured All Infra, which is a blockchain-based carbon trading platform based out of Hong Kong. eTrend, which is an electric vehicle company based out of Thailand, or Omni Foods, that developed the now world famous Omni Pork plant-based pork product that is very successful globally and scales across the US as well. And we have interviews with the likes of Temasek, the Papua New Guinea governor Gary Juffa, and the CEO of MTR. Our biggest takeaway of this book is that so much is happening across Asia that it was not enough to write a 250 pages long book that we originally planned. It became a 350 pages long book. And it was not enough to write a book. We had to organize discussions like today, panels like today, to feature people that are doing amazing work and organizations that are doing amazing work across Asia that we couldn't feature in the book. So this conversation and the research is going on, and we would like to share it with everyone. We are very happy to share it with you today, and we would like to make sure that you are connected to those people that are making a difference. And today is an opportunity to connect some of those people, all of them from Singapore, a city, a country that is doing an amazing work in the context of decarbonization, technology, and investments, facilitating those opportunities. So it's a pleasure for me to invite three great people to the panel. But before that, I would like to pay tribute to the people that are behind the book, that actually wrote this book, because ultimately, this is not my book. I'm just a messenger. I'm a curator. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by more than 15 people that have the domain expertise, they have the experience to contribute across the different industries with their knowledge and research to the book. We had so many people that we didn't even have enough space on this slide to feature the individuals. You can find everyone on our website, and I'm extremely privileged to have my co-editor, Roman Shemakov. So please give him a round of applause. He's an amazing partner in this story to make this book happen. But it's ultimately not about us. It's about the people that are doing the great work across Asia, across Asia's industries. And that's what we actually look for with our work at Carbonless, which is an innovation and investment platform based out of Singapore as well. But this is not an advertisement, and that's why we didn't call it Carbonless Asia book, because we wanted to share the knowledge that we gained with everyone and with you today. So with all that, I would like to invite my three fellow panelists to join me, and I really thank the team to set us up with chairs. I will have that too. Please panel, join wherever you see your faces. Do we have mics? Thank you.
Testing. Hello.
Welcome. Good to have you here in Sharm el-Sheikh. And I will not waste my time to introduce you, because you are much better at introducing yourselves. I will let you to introduce yourself in a minute to the audience, what you do and what your organization does, and what is your personal role within the particular organization. Let's just go ahead in this sequence, Anshari.
Thanks, Tony. First of all, congratulations on the launch of your book.
Thank you.
And also thank you to the Singapore Pavilion team for organizing this excellent panel session. Hi everyone, I'm Anshari from Genzero. So Genzero is an investment platform company wholly owned by Temasek with an initial capital of 5 billion Singapore dollars to deploy across decarbonization solutions. We have three core pillars: tech-based solutions, nature-based solutions, and carbon market ecosystem enablers. And very broadly, I think you have one slide covering the UN 6 sectors. We do cover about 5 of them: energy, buildings, agriculture, nature-based solutions, and buildings. And with that, happy to engage in further conversations. Hand over to Sharon.
Hi everyone. Before I introduce myself, I want to say thank you to Tony and the organizers of our Singapore Pavilion for this opportunity to speak on this panel. My name is Sharon, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Stax. For those who have not heard of Stacks, we are a Singapore fintech company focused on ESG fintech. And Stacks is actually an official partner of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS Project Greenprint. So MAS launched Project Greenprint in December 2020. And Project Greenprint is basically a collection of initiatives that aims to harness data and technology to create a more transparent, trusted, and efficient ESG ecosystem to enable green and sustainable finance. And as part of Project Greenprint, Stacks has developed an ESG registry called the ESGpedia. So as the name suggests, it's like an encyclopedia of ESG data. And this is it is a blockchain-powered data platform supporting a tamper-proof record of sustainability certifications and also verified sustainability data across various sectors, providing financial institutions, corporates, and also regulatory authorities a central common access point for these data. And this is in order to facilitate a better flow of trusted ESG data to able to mobilize capital to sustainable finance.
Thank you. Charles.
Thank you. Oh, I'm looking at the lunch, so I'm going to thank them in advance. My name is Charles. What do? I run the digital function in a company called Sembcorp from Singapore. What does Sembcorp do? We build carbon-free energy solutions. Just to give you a sense, for those of you from Singapore, 4.5 million people, all the drinking water that we drink in Singapore comes from carbon-free energy. And the energy solution comes from Sembcorp. Okay? So that gives you a sense of what we do. And me being the CDO, I integrate the hard technology, the data, and the software into one. And renewable energy is something that we care a lot about. And I actually am in the investment committee where every meeting is about investing into renewable energy solutions for Singapore and across Asia, as well as some parts of Europe and the Middle East.
Thank you very much. All three of you actually started elaborating on your companies and your personal relevance to decarbonization. And I would like to go a layer deeper. And obviously, I would like to start with you, Charles, because you were already in your narrative, and you're also the platform founder of GoNetZero. I will ask all of you to give a specific case study of your work for us to understand how you go about your business in the context of decarbonization. But if you can elaborate a little bit more on that in general and give us a case study, that would be great, and perhaps introducing GoNetZero as well.
So a sneak preview of GoNetZero. Before I joined Sembcorp, I spent a couple of years in the bank. And this is none other than the best digital bank in the world, the best bank in the world, DBS. Okay? In that job, I was doing future ready. And then I took some of the concepts from there and brought it into the energy business. Now, if you think about what Tony just explained, GoNetZero, it's come into the English grammar. Let's go net zero. So we were very fortunate to have that name, GoNetZero.ai. That's our website. What does that really mean? It is a comprehensive technology, data, software, and hard technology platform where we allow people to measure how much green energy they actually consume. Now, understand this, right? My high school physics taught me, if I remember correctly, electrons are colorblind. So what does that mean? When you generate an electron from fossil fuel versus the same electron from a solar panel, the electron itself does not know whether it was born from fossil fuel or from the sun or the wind. Now, this is where the technology platform I have put together is important. It is to allow corporates and individuals to measure when they say they are consuming green energy. You need to prove to the world that it is indeed green at birth. And that's a whole bunch of technology powered ultimately by blockchain. So I like to joke, when I was worker in a bank, I'm not a banker, I was a worker in a bank, we were doing Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies using blockchain. But I think in Sembcorp, I found a higher calling. We are using the same underlying technology to record every electron born that is green, and therefore give corporates and consumers the assurance that when they buy a green electron from a supplier that is green, it is immutable proof that it was born green. So that's like the whole concept of the GoNetZero platform. A lot of other things inside there. Please take a look at the platform, a bit of advertisement here, GoNetZero.ai.
Thank you. Advertisement for a good cause is very much welcome here. That's why we're here. Sharon, would you like to go a little bit deeper into explaining us what you do and perhaps present it through a case study?
Okay. So what we do, I think as Tony mentioned earlier, right? Asia Pacific accounts for more than 50% of the global carbon dioxide emissions globally. And so I think it is apparent that APAC, is where we win or lose this battle against climate change. And data is such a powerful tool, right, when it comes to driving change and accelerating climate action. So, but however, according to the World Economic Forum, the major number one ESG challenge organization face is data. So ESG data are fragmented, they are found in disparate systems, and some of them, worse still, they are in non-digital form. And also there's a lack of forward-looking disclosures by corporates and lack of real-time information, because as you know, corporates, when they do their self-disclosure, it usually only occur once a year. And in addition, industry certifications are expensive and hard to get. So this excludes a lot of smaller corporates or SMEs from getting access to financing. So you have a mismatch in the market. On the one hand, you have corporates who want to get access to financing but are not able to due to the lack of ESG data. And on the other hand, you have the financial institutions who have the capital, but they are not allocating capital efficiently to sustainable projects due to the fears of greenwashing, because there's a lack of trustable ESG data. So that's where ESGpedia comes to aims to meet the challenges of this problem out there. So we have built this ESG registry that aggregates verified data from major sources. And some of the industry use cases that we work include transport and logistics, agriculture, building and construction, and even the fashion, textile and fashion industry. And I would like to share one use case which is very interesting that we just launched this week. It's our partnership with Razer through Restorify. So basically, Restorify is a traceable, carbon neutral checkout service that's being rolled out by Razer FinTech. And I mean, I think the carbon neutral checkout service is something not new, but what is new that we've launched together with Razer is the fact that this deals exclusively with traceable carbon credits, right? We are providing line item information right down to the project information, source, like which country, what type of vintage, which year, and the quantity as well. So this is where we are hoping to bring, to help facilitate consumers to start doing their offsets in their daily lives.
Thank you, Sharon. Over to you, Anshari.
Thanks. Lots of great things being done by Sembcorp and Stacks. So congratulations. For Genzero, I think really when we look at how do we tackle the decarbonization issue, Asia is absolutely critical. As Sharon has pointed out, we make it or break it through Asia. And I think also earlier in your introduction, you mentioned 85% of the technology today is available to be deployed towards net zero. However, right, there are significant cost barriers to some of these technologies. So one of the theses, at least, that we are working on is how do we leverage capital and also carbon markets to bring down some of the green premiums for these nascent technologies that can be deployed in Asia Pacific, and how do we accelerate the deployment of these technologies, right? So across the 6 UN sectors that you've mentioned earlier, we cover broadly about 5 of them, minus transport. So in terms of green building materials, sustainable materials, carbon capture, green hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels, right? Sustainable aviation fuels. It's very critical to decarbonize the aviation sector, but we are also piloting an initiative together with CIX and Singapore Airlines on how do we generate carbon credits from sustainable aviation fuels through a blended product that can help buyers decarbonize or abate through in-sector solutions. One other example that I would like to highlight is in the nature-based solutions. So Genzero, we've invested in a tropical Asia forest fund under New Forest. So that looks at integrating ecosystem conservation, preservation, and reforestation in forestry plantations in 6 countries in Southeast Asia, right? Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Laos, and Cambodia. So this is something that we are doing on the ground and actually enacting climate action through capital itself. I would also like to highlight 3 key areas which really guide and inform our approach at Genzero. One is, I would like to call them 3 C's. First one is capital. How do we deploy capital most efficiently across the best decarbonization solutions, which might be different based on different geographies. And therefore, this brings me to my next C, which is carbon policies. Right? For example, in Southeast Asia, you've got 8 out of 10 Southeast Asian countries that have pledged net zero targets. How do we translate these targets into action plans, and what does it mean for the private sector, and how we deploy capital to enable decarbonization in Southeast Asia? And the third one, right, is capacity. So I think when you look at green jobs, transition from 2016 to 2021, in Asia Pacific itself, there's an increase in 30% of job creation in green jobs. This is quite significant in the course of 5 years, but it still lags behind the US at about 70% across the same 5-year period, and about 40% in Europe across the same 5-year period too. So there's a bit of catch up in Asia Pacific, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities that we can explore. And that's really the role that Genzero wants to play in catalyzing these actions. Thanks.
Thank you, Anshari. And thank you for all the impressive work you're already doing. But I do understand, even though Sembcorp is not a new company, but GoNetZero is a new initiative. And also Temasek behind Genzero is definitely not a new platform, but Genzero is. And Stacks is a relatively new company. So what I would like to talk about is not necessarily what you've done and what you're doing right now, but what you're planning to do. And if you can share with us some quantifiable targets that you're aiming for, whether it's CO2 emissions reduction, capital to be deployed. I do understand you mentioned, Anshari, 5 billion Singapore dollars of capital committed now, but will it be more? I would like to understand more about your plans in numeric terms, perhaps, because there are a lot of numbers that I heard already, and it would be great to put some figures next to the plans. So please, Anshari, carry on the narrative.
Thanks, Tony. So Genzero will launch in June this year at the silence of eco-prosperity. We are very young, but we've got a very capable team across investment groups and also strategy and development. We were incubated in Temasek before this for about a year. So when we launched, we had about 9 investments under our belt. In terms of our climate target, we are still early in the journey. So we are looking at how best to develop the framework to actually measure in an intellectually honest way the climate impact that we deliver through our investment capital. And how do we ensure that our investment dollar delivers the carbon yield that can help towards net zero world. Today, actually, there's a lot of frameworks out there in terms of understanding how to measure climate impact. But I think when you deep dive, I think this space is still very new. And we are working with other think tanks and consultancies to see how we can best measure this and potentially bring together like-minded investors to see how we can come together and put together a coherent framework for other like-minded capital deployment across the climate space itself. So at least for now, we are still early, right? And we've got investments and we are tracking the delivery of the climate impact for our investments. And this could be direct investments in projects that deliver carbon offsets or in companies that deploy solutions, or indirect impact. For example, if you look across our carbon ecosystem enablers pillar, right, we've got investments into South Pole, one of the world's largest carbon advisory and carbon project developers. And we've also got investments in Climate Impact X, which is the preeminent carbon exchange in Singapore, right? How do we measure the climate impact from our investments in these companies? We do invest in projects also, and some of the returns through carbon offsets, that's fairly easy to quantify, but it is a very complex space and a very nascent space. Yeah, thank you.
Before I ask Sharon the same question, I just realized that some people in the audience might not be familiar with Temasek, and we referred to Temasek a couple of times. Can you just introduce Temasek, please, the organization behind Genzero?
Temasek is an investment platform company with AUM about $300 billion. So yeah, we were incubated within Temasek, and actually we were partnering Temasek and the Ecosparity team, some of them are here, to organize this as part of the Ecosparity speaker series. So Ecosparity is a marquee Temasek event held every year to look at how we can bring together thought leaders in the decarbonization space and the sustainability space.
Thank you. And Sharon, over to you. I would like to hear some figures and plans and related figures to the plans.
So ESGpedia was launched earlier in May this year, and since then we have been working with the industries on use cases across different sectors. And together with our partners, financial institutions and corporates, we have actually completed 9 case studies, including green bond portfolio monitoring, supplier sustainability monitoring, and use cases including agriculture, building and construction, the built environment, and also transport and logistics. And we are looking to expand use cases across different sectors in the following year. And one thing we are very proud of is that we're also expanding in the region. We have recently announced a partnership with EGAT, the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, which is the state-owned power utility in Thailand. So through this partnership, we are looking to bring greater transparency to the renewable energy certificates markets, and we hope to bring Thailand and the ASEAN region closer to carbon neutrality as well. So as such, we are hoping that with this traction, we'll be generating more impact in the coming year.
Thank you. Charles?
My turn, eh?
Any figures? I need more figures.
You need more figures. Okay, so D also stands for data. 300 million data points every day. That is what we get in our systems across all our operations to measure without doubt what is happening in the places we operate in. Okay, 300 million data points every day. Let's go to a smaller number. 60 megawatt peak. What does that mean, right? As I was saying just now, that is the amount of energy that we generate off the floating solar farm, one of the largest in the world, okay? That supplies all the electricity demand that goes into Singapore's water filtration systems. So when you visit Singapore or when you live in Singapore, you can be assured that the water that you're drinking is completely carbon neutral. It's carbon free, okay? So that's another data point. I've got a lot more, okay? I just want to frame it properly, but these 2 extreme numbers.
Perfect. We will read your book about the many more figures as well. Thank you. Tell me, Anshari.
Yeah, okay, so I have a comment and I have a question for you also. So I think across the panel, you see we provide a capital into climate solutions, and Sharon looks at MRV aspects and Charles looks at data, right? And really at the end of the day, you always start with MRV. You need to measure accurately. And that informs capital deployment, and that informs the technology that can actually deliver the climate impact. Perhaps you can also provide us with some snippets from the book itself, where you think are the best opportunities in Asia Pacific in terms of decarbonization solutions across the 6 UN sectors.
You're really putting me on the spot, but I was asking for this. And I have a very diplomatic and media-trained answer to this, which also ties into an advertisement. You need to read the book for that. Everyone is asking me for an executive summary of the book, and I keep telling everyone that the book is the executive summary of what is happening across Asia Pacific. As I mentioned to you in the introduction, we were about to write a book of 250 pages. It became 350 pages, and we couldn't even feature GoNetZero, Stacks, and Genzero three amazing companies and three amazing people that are doing all these great things. So the opportunities are quite frankly limitless. When we started our work with Carbonless, there were no countries in Asia except Bhutan with a net zero commitment. And now the list is so long, I won't start mentioning the countries, starting with China, ending with, I think, Oman in our pretty well-defined Asia-Pacific region has been the most recent country committing to net zero. So the opportunities across the region, across this very vast region, are very diverse, very different according to the market, according to the level of development, according to the industrial mix. But I would like to encourage everyone, whether you are a corporate looking for new business opportunities, an investor looking for a new theme, or a startup looking for new markets to attack, this is the opportunity of the decade. This is what we believe in. And I cannot give you a better figure than 350 pages to get a snapshot. And I have two more questions before lunch. I would like to make everyone a bit calm. It's almost over. But I'm very curious, from your very well-educated perspectives, to understand what you think that is right now missing in Asia, and what is the gap that is yet to be filled. Because all three of you are doing great work, but not one organization, one individual, one group of people can solve all the challenges in the context of decarbonizing Asia, or attack and exploit all the opportunities. So I would like to understand from you what you think is missing, what you would like to invite the audience to contribute with as a solution and as a capacity. And perhaps starting with Sharon now, just to mix it up.
So I would say policy, right? I think there needs to be better alignment and mutual recognition at the policy level, especially because Asia Pacific is a diverse group of countries, right, of dozens of countries. And at Stacks, we hope, and what we are trying to do is to bring together a more common approach via our common data platform. And this is to bring across better interoperability across the region. So this is what we are hoping for.
Thank you. Charles?
Okay, so somebody asked me a similar question just now. You didn't tip me off. I want to take one step back, right? The fact that we're all here talking about zero. I was told when I was in school, zero is a bad number. But now it's very fashionable. That's good. The point is this: we're all here talking about net zero, GoNetZero, and zero emissions, going green, and so on. It's great. I do a lot of reading that is non-technology. I think the human race has this ability to tell stories. And we are here telling the same story or reading from the same story, or maybe from the same book. I think that's a great start. The challenge going forward is to translate what we say here into actions, whether it's a policy action or whether it is something that is meaningful to the people who didn't get a chance to come here. Okay? I flew 13 hours to come here, right? Not everybody can do that. So it's important that whatever we say, however we translate what we promise into technologies, 85% of it is ready. Make it work so that everybody can benefit from this. It's a little bit like the early days of the App Store. Everybody is trying to build an app, and then the scale comes up. And now all of us has an iPhone or Android phone. In the early days, people were saying, no, it's too expensive and so on. We will find a way, and I think we will find a way with renewable energy. We have to do it.
Thank you. Beautiful. Anshari.
For me, it's cooperation. So cooperation across public, private, people sector, but also cooperation across countries. Right. So today, if you look at carbon pricing, we have about 71 countries or jurisdictions applying carbon prices, either in the form of emissions trading scheme or carbon taxes. And I think a lot of attention last year and this year is around Article 6, how countries can cooperate with one another through market mechanisms, essentially deploying where is mitigation most effective, right, in the Asia Pacific. Right? If we can enhance that cooperation, I think that will really catalyze a lot of not just capacity building, one of the C's that I mentioned earlier, learning from what others are doing, but also climate action.
Fantastic. And I would like to add one comment to that. Based on my experience last year at COP26, when I was talking about trends and activities in the context of decarbonization in Asia Pacific, I thought there was too little conversation and also too little awareness about what was happening in that region. And I thought it was a shame. And I'm really pleasantly surprised or impressed that this year there's way more presence from Asia Pacific, way more awareness from other delegates, and there are way more conversations. And I agree with Charles, now the conversations are happening, we are all here, and now we need to put that all into action with the right policy support and all together. And my very last question will be to you. You can answer it two ways. It's whether you have a call to action for the people present or streaming this conversation, or if you don't have a call to action because you already said that, what is your takeaway so far from COP27 for Asia Pacific and for your industries?
Yeah, so I'll reiterate again, it's about cooperation for me. And maybe I'll share a bit of, so I was previously a climate negotiator and I've attended, this is probably my 8th COP. And I think I've seen the evolution of COPs under the UNFCCC over the years. And I think last year is when we actually see the inflection point where COP is becoming a bit more of a convening of great minds and companies and countries coming together, civil society. And really the buzz is around the pavilions that we see now, more so than the negotiation rooms. So I think moving forward, this is what I envision. Maybe one day we can have an Asia Pacific booth, right, with all the countries. You never know. Singapore government, yeah, please take note. Yeah. For me, one key takeaway is I think we should move towards carbonless to carbonless, right? And maybe from doing things better, we should do better things. That's how we deploy capital into effective solutions that can actually help towards real net zero future. Thank you.
This wrap-up message is a high benchmark, high threshold to hit. So please, Sharon, go ahead and give us yours.
So I think, as I said earlier, I believe Asia Pacific as a region is going to make or break our fight against climate change. And riding on what Anshari said, right, collective action is key to in this in this move towards climate action. And also, it's key to drive tackling climate change and also decarbonizing Asia. So it requires collective action and concerted action, concerted efforts by all stakeholders, right? You have the legislators, you have the national governments, investors, companies, and even households, right? All this, we need concerted effort from everybody to accelerate the transition towards a carbon neutral economy. So this is important because I feel that sustainability is no longer a choice. For businesses, being sustainable is, is the only way to be and also to remain in business. And right now you have investors, you have customers, and also employees. They not only demand transparency, but they also expect, they're seeking out companies that are aligned with their values. So we really have to start taking action.
Thank you. Last but not least, Charles.
Thank you. We're all individuals here. So my call to action is this, right? Send the message out. We can all make a difference. 8 billion of us. Can you hear me? Okay. 8 billion of us. All of you in the room. Do something on a personal level, right? It starts from you. Personally, I'm very happy to share. I don't drive. I don't even own a car in the family. My kids take a bus to school. Now, if more and more people can go and share, that's a simple thing to do. Another example, and I joke about this with some of my friends, I do 1 meal a day. So if you eat less, you consume less. Again, the human race is a very consuming species. We need to be aware of all this. Let's get our acts together. That's my personal call to all of you listening there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all three of you. And just like in the book, we don't make a judgment, we don't have a personal call to action. We're just providing a snapshot of what others do and think and call you into action. I will just leave it here without my personal call to action. And I just would like to invite you to connect with the speakers, connect with all of us, connect with each other, and accelerate all of us into action. And thank you again for coming here for this very special panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.